Hello, everyone. Welcome to our talk. I'm Regina Cheng from University of Washington. Today, my team and I are going to talk about our mixed method paper in which we empirically studied how creators request feedback and how their strategies will affect feedback responses. Today, many creative workers post their works in online communities, such as Reddit and Dribble. Members in the community respond to their posts with feedback. In order to support this process, previous research focused on scaffolding feedback, such as prompting feedback providers and helping creators make sense of feedback they receive. Our study instead aimed for understanding and supporting feedback seekers to effectively request feedback in the first place. We focused on one particular online critique community, the Art Design Critiques subreddit. In the community, feedback requests are posted as public forum messages, and other members could respond their feedback in the thread.
Hi, I'm Maysnow. I'll discuss our first study that answered our question, what makes an effective feedback request? We interviewed 12 community members and asked them about what information they usually present when requesting feedback, and what information they look for in others' requests when providing feedback. We found tensions between requesters and providers' opinions on what makes a good feedback request. The first is how to best present design context. When requesting feedback, creators usually provide basic description of the design, such as what the design is and what the purpose of the design is. On the other hand, when providing feedback to others, creators want to know more about the details of the context, such as rationales about how the design was made because they want to go through the process themselves. The second is whether or not to show personal details in their request. When requesting feedback, creators tend to hide their personal details as they want general, neutral feedback uninfluenced by their identity. However, when responding to others' requests, they want to see personal details so they can better empathize with the creator, especially with novices. The third is whether to show specific or general prompts for feedback. When requesting feedback, they don't want to include specific prompts to avoid ruling out ideas. But when responding to requests, they prefer specific prompts, such as pointers to areas that they specifically want feedback on in order to provide spot-on help. In order to unpack the uncertainties of whether these request strategies would work, we did the next study.
Hi, I'm Crystal. I'm going to talk about study 2 in which we answered the question, how different request strategies affect feedback responses. We first sampled 879 feedback requests and qualitatively coded feedback request strategies indicated by the interview study. We then used computational methods to analyze the feedback responses to the request and calculated 5 measures: quantity, the count of feedback, timeliness, the wait time for the first response, length of the feedback, score of actionability, and score of justification in the feedback. And finally, we look for a relationship between the request strategies and feedback measures through a regression analysis. We identified 7 feedback request strategies, including presenting basic description of the design, rationales of design decisions, and self-critiques on the design. Presenting different versions or variants of the design, specifically pointing to certain areas, and owning general calls such as any feedback is welcomed. And last but not least, providing personal details in the request, specifically signifying that their status as a novice in the topic area. With the regression analysis, we were able to map up how each request strategy makes a difference in measures of resulting feedback. We found that presenting basic description of this design in the request is linked to lower score of justification in feedback. The presence of self-critique is associated with increase in actionability in the feedback. Presenting variants of the design in the request is correlated with faster feedback response, better justified feedback, but also shorter feedback. Calling out their novice status in the request is correlated to better justified feedback. In general, presenting self-critique, design variants, and novice status in the feedback request will lead to better feedback. However, we also found that these strategies are rarely used in the community. Previous literature suggested that these strategies may not be intuitive, and it may not be humiliating to call oneself a novice in the public.
These findings lead to the design implications on future design of online feedback systems. Systems should help creators effectively frame their requests. Specifically, systems could scaffold them to reflect and critique on their own design. It will also help them to generate, compare, and effectively present different variants of their designs. And finally, it could also help novices to connect to experts and exchange feedback privately to reduce anxiety to expose their novice status in the public space. And thanks for listening.